Today, we will learn about the element of art called form. The objectives for this week is for you to be able to say, I can perceive and analyze artistic work. I can comprehend how Renaissance artists used linear perspective in their artworks. And I can practice simple one-point linear perspective on my own. I also have the standards displayed on this slide. You may take a look and read through them. We will start with a video from PBS 𝐄𝐥𝐸D Art School, and this is their video on the element of form.
These paintings are all examples of the genre of art called trompe-l'oeil. Translated from French, trompe-l'oeil literally means fool's the eye. It's a style of art that makes you question if what you're seeing is real. It's this illusion of depth that artists create, which tricks our eyes. When shapes get this third dimension of depth, they become forms. Form is one of the 7 elements of art, along with line, shape, texture, value, space, and color. When given form, circles become spheres, squares become cubes, triangles become cones or pyramids. Form takes up space in either a real or implied way. In paintings and drawings, for instance, form is implied because it's an illusion of 3 dimensions. With sculpture, on the other hand, form is real because it takes up 3-dimensional space. Visual artists use light and shadow effects to create the illusion of 3-dimensional form. A strong sense of form can also be created by increasing contrast between highlights and shadow areas. Street artist Banksy uses this technique a lot. Notice how these human forms are made up of only white, black, and 1 shade of gray. Sometimes form can even be created by an artist's use of color. Artist 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐦𝐞𝐧𝐭 often juxtaposes brightly colored forms against neutral backgrounds to create the illusion of depth. Notice his forms don't incorporate any shading at all. These are just a few ways artists create forms and incorporate depth into their work. What are some other ways that artists create form? Is there a particular style or technique that draws you in and catches your eye? Mastering many different approaches to making form will give you unlimited options when creating your own artwork, and will enable you to fool viewers' eyes in any way you choose.
So let's review. We've been learning about the elements of art so far this year, and we've learned about 2. The first is line. A mark made by a moving point is called a line. When that line circles back on itself, it becomes a shape. And when the shape becomes 3-dimensional, it creates a form. So form can be defined as when shapes are stretched into the 3rd dimension, they become forms. Circles become cones, spheres, or cylinders. Squares become cubes or rectangular prisms. Triangles become pyramids or triangular prisms. Linear perspective is a technique for representing 3-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface, such as paper. Linear perspective is a method which was invented during the Renaissance when artists were trying to draw as realistically as possible. It is a mathematical system to show depth realistically. Linear perspective is based on the way the human eye sees the world. Things that are closer to us appear larger, and things that are farther away appear smaller. To create this illusion, the artist creates a vanishing point on the horizon line. Objects are drawn using orthogonal lines, which lead to the vanishing point. Today, we will learn about one-point perspective. In one-point perspective, there is only one vanishing point, and objects must have a side that faces the viewer. Let's take a look at a famous artwork which uses one-point perspective. In The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, we see clear use of one-point perspective. This mural has a horizon line, a vanishing point, and orthogonal lines. In this painting, we represent space realistically because the room seems to get smaller as it goes back, and all of the lines, which we know would be straight lines, appear to converge on the vanishing point. This represents correct usage of one-point perspective. One-point perspective cubes. We will be drawing some cubes or rectangular prisms in our sketchbook. We're going to watch this demo video first. So do not start drawing yet. Watch this demo first. Okay, so we're going to do a very quick demonstration for one-point perspective. At this point, I just want you guys to watch the video, and I'll do a second video where I'll go slower and you can work with me. So I'm going to take my ruler and my sketchbook here, and the first thing I want to do is draw my horizon line. The horizon line goes across the middle. Doesn't have to be perfectly center, but you want to keep it straight. All right, horizon line. And on the horizon line, you're going to put a point, and we're going to call this our vanishing point. Now we want to draw a square, all right, and we need to connect the corners to our vanishing point. So I've been doing this in marker. I'm going to quickly switch over to pencil, and you'll see why in a second. So I did that part in pencil because we are going to have to erase, and I'm doing it in marker so you can see it. However, I can't erase marker. So we have our square, we have our horizon line, our vanishing points, a vanishing point, and we connected these three corners to our vanishing point. So now we have to make a line parallel to the bottom that's going to cut off the bottom part here. So I'm going to put a little dot so I know where I'm drawing it. So this line is going to be between these two vanishing points. Now I also have to do the same thing on the side. It has to be parallel to the side, but it has to meet this point, and we want it to be between those two vanishing lines. All right, now I'm going to use my marker where I'm not erasing. And that one can look crooked, but You get the idea here. This looks more like a cube. We're going to take our eraser, erase our extra lines here. That's why I did those in pencil. And that is an example of a cube drawn in 1-point perspective. Now here's what I don't want you to do. Don't do this. Okay, and don't do this either. Yes, these look like cubes. However, they're not drawn in 1-point perspective. So this is an easy way to do cubes. This is the way we learn when we're young. But in art class, we want to use 1-point perspective so that our boxes, our cubes, exist in something, not just out there on their own. They exist in a space, and this is the vanishing point of that space. Now that you've watched the demo, it's time for you to draw along. So get out your sketchbook, and if you're at home, feel free to pause the video throughout this section so that you can draw along with me. If you're in class, if you have questions, raise your hand, and I'm going to leave the video playing most likely, but I'll still try to come around and help you guys. And this will be turned in for a grade. So please make sure you're paying attention to this part of the video and drawing along with it. All right, we're gonna need our sketchbook or a blank piece of paper, and we're gonna need a pencil. You can use a lead pencil or a wood pencil, but you're gonna need an eraser. So if your pencil doesn't have an eraser on it, and you have a little eraser you can grab, we're definitely gonna need an eraser for this today. Also, you are gonna need a ruler. However, if you don't have a ruler, you can use something like the edge of a folder or a workbook, something that will let you make a straight line by tracing on the side. So today we are going to draw some squares, and then we're going to use something called 1-point perspective to turn our squares into cubes. So we want to start with drawing the horizon line. So pick a spot, middle of your page, doesn't have to be perfectly centered, and draw a nice straight line right across the middle of your page. You're then going to pick a point to make your vanishing point. All right, so your paper should look like this. And we want to start with drawing a square. So if you have a ruler, use the ruler to make the sides even. If you don't have a ruler, once again, you can use something like a folder or a workbook. And I'm going to draw my first square down here. So I'm using a folder, so I'm going to make, I think, 2 sides like this. All right, if you have a little mess up, we have an eraser, so we can go ahead and erase that. So here is my first square. Square is a shape, and shapes are 2-dimensional. But today we're learning about form. So we want to take this 2-dimensional shape and we want to stretch it out into the 3rd dimension. So the way we're going to do that with 1-point perspective is by drawing some lines. They're going to go from the edge of our shape all the way back to our vanishing point. So once again, if you don't have a ruler, you can use something like a folder. I'm going to go ahead and use the ruler for this so you can see what I'm doing in the video. My ruler is clear, so that should help you. So we're going to go from each of the edges, the corners rather, of our square, and we want to line our ruler up so that the edge here lines up to the vanishing point. Now make sure you're the boss of your ruler. When you go to draw the line, don't let the ruler boss you around, okay? Make sure once you have it lined up I like to use 3 or 4 fingers and push down on the ruler firmly to make sure that it stays put. And when I draw these lines, I want to draw them kind of lightly because we are going to be doing some erasing. And if I draw these lines super dark, it's going to be harder to erase. So nice and lightly from the corner of my square all the way to the vanishing point. So there's my first. And we're going to go, and once again, we're going to go from the corner, and we're going to the same point, the vanishing point. Nice and light line. All right. Let's go down to the bottom here. From the corner of the square to my vanishing point again, a nice light line. Now we still have this corner here, and I'm going to do it to show you, but if we're making a solid cube, you actually wouldn't see this line. But let's still draw it today because we're still learning, and this is going to help us to understand and kind of connect this concept. So from my last corner to my vanishing point. All right, so here's what I should have on my paper. I have my square, and all 4 corners have a line that connects them to the vanishing point. So what it looks like from here is almost like a long beam that disappears into the background. But we want to make this into a cube, not a beam. So we have to cut off these lines so that we shorten it. So when you draw the next line, we're going to be drawing 2 lines. We're going to draw one line that is parallel to this line here, and it's going to go between these 2 vanishing lines. And then we're going to draw a second line that's parallel to this line, and it's going to go between these 2 vanishing lines. So let's pick a point. How far back do we want our cube to go? And I'm going to pick like right about here. And I'm going to put a tiny dot just to help guide me when I do this part. So I'm going to take my ruler. I want to line it up so that it is parallel to this side. And I'm going to slide it over, and I want to meet this line. All right, so there we go. Now I want to meet this point again, but I have to keep it parallel to the top line. So lining the ruler up here, sliding it up to keep it parallel, and holding the ruler down firmly. I'm going to go ahead and draw another line. So are you starting to see the cube showing up here? And I can darken these lines at this point because these lines are going to stay. However, we're going to erase the extra part of the lines, and that also includes the line that we did on the inside. So let's get our eraser out, or if you have an eraser on your pencil. I'm going to erase this line that goes across the middle, and anything beyond where the cube is, I'm going to erase. And it looks 3-dimensional. It's no longer just a 2D square, but a 3-dimensional cube. So let's go ahead and let's draw another square. And this time I want to put it up top. And I think I'm going to put it pretty much in the center here. So I'm going to use my ruler. Or if I don't have a ruler, once again, I can use a straight edge from a folder or a workbook. Erase the little extra bits of line. All right, so here is my second square, and I want to connect the corners to my vanishing point. So let's start right here on the bottom left corner. use my ruler, line it up, hold the ruler down firmly, and draw a line from the corner to the vanishing point. Now I can try to do one from here, but if you remember with our first cube, we didn't see the line that went through the cube because we're making a solid object. So if I draw a line from this corner down to the vanishing point, I'm just going to end up erasing that line, so I don't have to draw it. And the same thing goes from this corner. If I try to draw a line from this corner to the vanishing point, that line is going to be hidden. It's going to be in the back, so I'm not going to see it. So there's really no point in drawing that line because I'm just going to erase it if I do. So what we have to do now is draw a line from this corner. And you can always draw all 4 lines and erase the extra ones if it helps you to understand the concept better. All right, so here's what I have. And once again, it looks like a beam kind of sticking out into the space towards you. So I have to draw a line parallel to this line that's going to end my cube. It's going to tell me how deep the cube is. And a cube would technically be a perfect square, right? It would be like every side would be the same length. So we could make it a rectangular prism and not a cube. If we stretch it out a little bit longer, and I'll give you an example here. If I draw the line back here, do you see how we made now a long shape? Or if I want to stick with keeping them as cubes, go a little bit shorter, maybe right about here. Once again, still parallel with this line. I have a nice cube. Okay, let's do one more. And if yours are not in the same place on the paper as mine, that's fine, right? So there is square. Now I have to start to connect it to what? Where do I want the edges of my square to connect to? That's right, the vanishing point. So we're going to take our ruler, and let's start from the bottom left. We're going to draw a line from the corner here that connects to the vanishing point. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing from this corner here. And it's really important each time that you move the ruler, you make sure the lines are still connecting to the vanishing point. If they go off and connect somewhere else, it's going to mess up the perspective. All right, we're going to do it on this one here now. Line it up right from the corner down to the vanishing point. Now, do I need to do it from this corner? No, I don't need to do it from this corner. So at this point, it looks like a long beam coming out towards us. Now I have to cut off the ends of these lines and decide how deep I want this cube to be. So line up my ruler, keep it parallel to the bottom of the square, and I'm drawing this between these 2 lines. There you go. Now I want to do the same thing here between these 2 lines, but I have to keep it parallel now with the side. You're going to take a photo of your drawing, which will have at least 3 cubes or rectangular prisms in it. Remember to draw the horizon line first. Make sure you have a vanishing point. And I'd like you to go ahead and label the horizon line and label the vanishing point as well. Where you would choose to draw your boxes is up to you, but they must all go to the same vanishing point. This makes them all exist in the same place, so the perspective looks correct. And once again, you only have to do 3, but if you'd like to do extra for extra practice, that's fine. Once you've completed the 1-point perspective cubes drawing, you will take a photo of it and turn it in to Google Classroom for this assignment. And then you will complete the 1-point perspective worksheet, also found on Google Classroom. This one is a Google form, and it will grade it for you. It's very, very short worksheet. I just want to see that you're understanding some of the concepts we learned about today in class. You will only get one attempt to do this worksheet. So once again, there will be 2 grades for this week: the 1-point perspective cubes drawing and the 1-point perspective worksheet. Have fun. Happy drawing.